Good evening, welcome back. Friday, November the 22nd. It's been a busy day on the Celtic way. Been a busy day if you're just involved with Celtic in any shape or form. I'm Tony Haggerty, at Haggerty10 on the Twitter handle, and I'm delighted as always to be joined by Ryan McGinley, at the Ryan McGinley, who's probably got square eyes like mine from staring at his screen for many hours today. Ryan, how are you, sir? Are you well?
Yeah, getting there. It's been a really long day from the from the AGM to the response to the AGM to the press conferences to doing the articles after the press conferences to writing up the Q&As. It's been a long day, but a worthwhile day. I think it's been a largely successful one for Celtic in all in all facets and all sectors. From the early morning of waking up to finding out that Alistair Johnston had signed a new contract. Yeah. We thought that it was in the post. We thought that it was imminent, and it was. It certainly was. The Celtic social media team teased it by putting his clip and the Christmas advert up again, an early Christmas present. I think the majority, I think every Celtic supporter will be delighted with that news. The fact that he's there for another 4 or 5 years, up until 2029. People will be hoping it won't be the last contract that he signs. People would be quite happy if he stayed at Celtic for the rest of his career. From that, then on to the AGM, which is always entertaining. Then the press conferences from Johnson and Rodgers, respectively. So it's been a really successful day. And yeah, there just seems to be loads of successful days for Celtic at the moment. Hopefully that continues tomorrow at Tynecastle.
As the manager says, they are in a good place, and as the AGM proved, both on and off the park, they're in a good place, both getting results. Yeah, if you want to know what happened at the AGM, guys, I'll direct you to Ryan's live blog. He did a fantastic live blog, and it's doing very well on the website as we speak. You can have a look at that. It kind of goes over the main points and stuff of that today. And as we say, started very well. It was a good start to the day. Alistair Johnston, new 5-year deal, led us into kind of 10:30, 11ish when we started the AGM, Ryan. Eventful, entertaining, as always. Michael Corleone, Rod Stewart, pyrotechnics, all getting a mention. And amongst all of that, the Celtic end, stadium revamps, all that kind of stuff. So what did you make of it all?
Yeah, from Palestine to pyrotechnics to the Glasgow City Council to Michael Corleone to hitmen, everything was spoke about. It was the only, you put all of those words and phrases together, the only thing that could be happening all at the same time could be a Celtic AGM. Honestly, it's definitely something that's unlike any other. I know Celtic get called a club unlike any other. Well, Celtic's AGMs are very much like that too. They're a wide net, a very wide net of different topics in the one day.
Shuts and congregate to these, watch these Celtic AGMs, and when it goes to the floor, you just don't know what's coming. And the top table, it can also be weird and wonderful and wacky, as we heard today. There's a plethora of topics that were raised at the AGM, all dealt with excellently, I thought. But I think that comes from the fact that Celtic are in a good place and things are going well. Might have been a bit different had Celtic not been so dominant.
Dominant domestically and doing so well in the Champions League as well. And I like the fact that I alluded to that quite a number of times today, which is important. It's the next step for Celtic, and it's one of Brendan Rodgers' remits that he's getting judged on in his 3 years at the club. Fingers crossed he can be here longer than the 3 years. That is what was getting spoke about as well today. I'm sure we'll get on to talking about that when we get to the press conferences. But yeah, there's so much success in and around the club at the moment. That winning mentality is very much there. From where the club were 4 years ago, and I remember or not tuning in, but keeping up to date with the COVID times and the COVID AGM, and it was very doom and gloom at that point, talking about reviews and managers, talking about certain jobs being untenable. Now, looking at that 4 years later, the club's in a completely different place. They've been winning trophies left, right and centre. They've brought arguably one of their most successful managers in recent history back to the club after being in the Premier League for X amount of years. And yeah, that winning streak has continued. It hasn't all been plain sailing, but at the moment, Celtic are in a tremendous place, both on the pitch with the way they're playing, with the on-field assets that they've got, and off-field as well, with transfers, with financials, the way the club's been run. And yeah, there seems to be a lot of happiness. I know there was a couple of questions that fans were moaning, or shareholders rather were moaning about certain things that were going on. But for the most part, I think the club is getting run extremely well, and long may that continue, because if a club's been run well off the park, then naturally that will then transfer onto the pitch, and that's certainly what's happening at the moment.
You referenced the season that shall not be named, but there was levels of toxicity at those events that just that were unpleasant, and it, for want of a better word. So it is refreshing to see that Celtic have moved on from that, and as you say, their financials are showing a real surplus of cash in the bank. But as always, Chairman Mr. Peter Law was talking about preparing for a rainy day when you don't get the Champions League money and it's Europa League money and your finances take a hit and a dun. And but I think the way things are going just now, most people are confident that Celtic can continue to grab the Champions League money for the foreseeable future. I think that season that you referenced was a real wake-up call to everybody. The falling asleep at the wheel type thing that they were always warned against, and it couldn't have happened in a worse season. But from that adversity and despair, they've gone from strength to strength, and real strength to strength, because it's not so much a domination of Scottish football, it's an obliteration of the opposition and a pulverisation of your opposition, certainly domestically. And now we're seeing the fruits of that being transferred into Europe. We're starting to make inroads, and that for me has been the biggest joy to watch and the biggest gauge of progression, Ryan, for Celtic and where we've come in those 4 years.
Yeah, you could say that what happened for three and a bit 4 years ago was the best thing to happen to the club in recent times, given what has happened. And maybe it's not the way a football club should necessarily be run, in which it's more reactive than proactive in some of their movements. But I seem to remember when Celtic got put out in the semi-final of the Scottish Cup back in 2016, that prompted Dermot Desmond and the hierarchy to bring in Brendan Rodgers the first time. You know, from where the club were under Neil Lennon, unfortunately, the way that ended, you know, after what was a successful first season back for Neil Lennon, it's got to be underlined that it was. He managed to deliver a treble, which he hadn't managed before in his managerial career. But the way that season, it was a complete anomaly. But now you'd say that a lot of good has come from that season.
Yeah.
And even hear from other, you know, from Hamish and I were talking about it earlier on in the week. You know, Connor Goldson was talking about it. Rangers were quite happy to stop the 10, and that was it. As if the levels dropped. Celtic were hungry to keep on going and start a new streak, which is currently ongoing at the moment, which is brilliant for all concerned. I think the club is run spectacularly well. The revenue looks tremendous. The profit margins are absolutely brilliant for the club at the moment, and long may that continue, because it shows that they're getting run in the right way. They're financially well off. They've got assets all over the park. They've got their stars signing up to new contracts that actively want to be at the club. Don't get me wrong, I think Alistair Johnston could be a Premier League player, but the fact that he signed up for the next 5 years shows how happy he is at the club. Everything's really good at the moment. No complaints whatsoever. And you're just hoping that Celtic can continue that good feeling tomorrow at Tynecastle.
Yeah, I mean, I think myself and Hamish spoke about that this morning. We went about 22 minutes and we hadn't even mentioned the Hearts game, right? And
that's what happens.
And both protagonists who were put in front of the media today, Alistair Johnston and Brendan Rodgers, the Hearts game was almost incidental, wasn't it? It was almost kind of, oh, by the way, you're playing Hearts tomorrow, a word on them. But both men spoke very, very well. We'll take Alistair Johnston first. Obviously, the contract, he was delighted at that. And I said this morning, it's just a joy to listen to Alistair Johnston. You just know you're not going to leave empty-handed. And once again, he was in tip-top form, wasn't he? And talking about how Brendan Rodgers has improved him, how he just loves his time at Celtic, and even was polite to the question about becoming a Celtic future captain. He said it wasn't anything that he was thinking about, and he also said that getting the guys together in that huddle was one of the most difficult things he's ever did in his life, and which was very surprising and very enlightening to me, because I thought that's something that he would have relished. But it just shows you, Ryan, that kind of responsibility and stage fright can get you're amongst your peers, and what do you say here, you know?
Yeah, the quote in full said that keeping the huddle short was the most difficult thing that he'd done in his Celtic career. Now, he's alluding to himself and the fact that he's a big talker and he can go on and on. So I think him sort of editing his team talk into a respectable length was the main problem for him. He is a chatter. There is absolutely no doubt about it. I was as surprised as probably anyone when I seen that the press conference was only 9 minutes. I thought that Johnston would have been rivaling Rodgers for the 24 minutes press conference, because my goodness, Johnston can speak. But that's no bad thing, and it shows that he's a leader behind the scenes too, which is brilliant to see. I think he's a guy that just, and you can't quantify this with data, he just gets it. He gets what it means to play for Celtic. He's got that grit. He's got that ice hockey grit that he was that Celtic were probably looking for when they signed him. Somebody that's physical but also quite graceful in a game as well. For all the physicality that he brings, I think he's quite graceful with his crossing, and he's cutting inside as well, and playing alongside Nicholas Kuhn. He was talking about Nicholas Kuhn being his sort of secret weapon, or the main secret to his. It's one of my favourite new partnerships in this team at the moment, and it's really coming to fruition, which is absolutely brilliant to see at the moment.
I did like the fact that he said that, what's the secret, and without a doubt he said Nicholas Kuhn, didn't he? He just like no hesitation, straight off answer. The bat. He's just like, it's that guy there. I love playing with him. Just and I love that, and I think Big Dom nailing it here. Unity is Celtic strength. It most certainly is, and you can see that with the players. And William O'Toole, I'll give you a short answer to that. Yes, we spoke about that this morning, Ryan, and I said I found it twee and cringy, and I was getting all sorts of cringe comments and stuff like that. He said, I can't speak for other people, that they loved it and they think it's the best Christmas advert ever. That's fine. I didn't. I know how I feel about it. That's all I said. So, William, yes, nothing's changed. Ryan, your own thoughts on the Christmas ad quickly, if you are.
Just very quickly. I've got to say I'm more on your side of things, Tony, than anybody else. I did see an outpouring of love towards the advert. For me personally, I don't think it lit a candle to the first class post a Coglu one in 2021. I thought that was perfect, the perfect amount of funny and heartwarming. Whereas I don't think everything necessarily landed in the latest Christmas advert. I thought there was a couple of moments I was like, I'm not really sure where they're going with that. A couple of really nice moments, having Jimmy Johnston in the video. If I was Ayr United, I'd be wondering where my manager is a lot of the time. In fact, he's in a Celtic top a lot recently.
These days, isn't he? Yeah.
Yeah. For me personally, I think they've had better Christmas adverts, but I can understand. Maybe it's not for my demographic. I'm not sure. Maybe it's for parents or people who are a bit older, looking back on times gone past. But for me, I preferred some of the other Christmas adverts more. It still did deliver in some moments, but in other moments, I thought it wasn't dreadful, but I think it could have been a lot better, in my opinion. Anyway, that's just my opinion.
I kind of fall on that side of the fence as well, Ryan. But hey, what do I know? I'm just an old Grinch.
Listen, nothing is going to top Jota doing George Michael for me. Let's be perfectly honest with that. That was I don't think they can get much better than that. It's very difficult to get to that level. Although I did think last year the Brendan Rodgers, dusting or the shop employee dusting or taking the dust off of the book was particularly funny. I like that. Self-depreciating stuff like that I really like, and I think more of that is required, in my opinion anyway.
Yeah, there was one with Bertie Auld in it as well, which I really liked as well. So maybe I'm just a bit biased, but there you go. Anyway, back to the press conference today. Alistair Johnston, as we've said, spoke very, very well. Just a man who's loving life at the moment, Ryan. So he has everything in his life has kind of fallen into place. 5-year contract, his girlfriend and soon-to-be wife studying in Edinburgh. He's committed himself to 5 years, certainly at Celtic, and he is.
Can't forget Salem the dog either. Salem the black lab. They've got Salem the black lab as well, who's a bit Instagram famous as well. But I think that does show you as well that they're settled. You know, a dog's a big undertaking, and it's normally quite difficult to move dogs from country to country, just given red tape. Yeah. We both know about that. But I think even having that as part of it is a big thing too.
You had the pleasure of meeting my 5 dogs recently, didn't you? The dubious honour. You enjoyed it after every smile on your face. That was fun. An eye-opener, to say the least. Yeah, a dog is a big undertaking, but it's just things like that make you think that he's in it for the long haul in terms of his Celtic career. And the manager himself alluded to that a wee bit about him, didn't he? And sort of said he just praised everything about him, his attitude, and he wants to learn, and he has really enjoyed coaching him.
I mean, what's not to like about Alistair Johnston, to be honest with you? He's a leader off the park. He's a leader on the park. He's also a good player on the park. Off the park, he's a good trainer, and he's really good with the media as well. So he's a manager's dream, in my opinion, anyway. I think, he started well for Ange Postecoglou. Baptism of fire against Rangers at Ibrox is a massive game to come into. It's probably a measure of the player, and I'm glad that Rodgers alluded to that as well in his press conference, because I've been saying the same thing. It takes character to make your debut in a Glasgow derby, and he did it, and was, in my opinion, in that game, the best player on the park. I thought he fit that fixture like a glove, and ever since then, I think he's been a dominant presence in all things good with Celtic and Glasgow derbies. He understands the magnitude of the fixture. He understands how to operate while on a booking as well, which is important in those games, because I remember getting an early booking at Ibrox, and yet he's one of the best players on the park on that day, in my opinion. So yeah, I think he's been a really, really solid signing. Mark Lawwell was getting quite a bit of stick today at the AGM, but Brendan Rodgers was quick to point out that it was Alistair Johnston. Alistair Johnston was brought to the club by Mark Lawwell, so you've got to take the good with the bad, and Johnston coming to the club is a good thing.
Yeah, without a doubt. I don't think anybody can deny that. You all right, fella? You okay? Yeah, struggling? That's fine. He's back in the room nearly. Yeah, we'll move on to the manager, Ryan, because the manager had lots of interesting things to say, not least of which when he was asked about renewing his own contract.
Now, that's the only place to start, Tony, in my opinion.
Contracts seem to be the buzzword of today. And if you look on the website later, you'll see something that I've written for tonight that alludes to that contract trilogy involving Johnston, Taylor, and the manager himself. But the manager, Ryan, he said he's in no hurry to leave. He was kind of leaving it kind of open-ended, wasn't he? He said he missed it when he left Celtic, and he said that he would be here for 3 years unless I get emptied. He couldn't remember his phrasing, didn't he? But he said, unless I get emptied. That was his phrase.
I wish I was at that press conference that moment, because I would have said that. I remember the quote.
Yeah. Unless I get emptied, as they say in these parts. That's what he said back then in his first day back of his second spell. And but I found it very encouraging, Ryan. And if I'm the Celtic hierarchy, I'm stroking my chin and thinking, okay, we'll time this right, but we'll maybe need to have a chat with the most important man at the club right now and see what his thoughts are on it. I mean, there's no immediate rush. He said that himself. He's 2 years into a 3-year deal. He said he would stay the 3 years, and he said maybe sometime next season they would sit down and they'll probably have to sit down and see what his thoughts are. But he gave me the impression of a man who doesn't want to go anywhere because he's living life again like Alistair Johnston. He's found a happy place.
Yeah, I think he's very, very settled, much like his outfield player in Alistair Johnston. To me, Tony, it kind of he cut about like a figure that wanted to be there longer than the 3 years that he was contracted.
Yeah,
in the club, because I think he sees long-term legacy at Celtic. He clearly now he doesn't need to prove to anybody else that he loves Celtic. We all know that he does. He's grovelled to the supporters enough over the past year and a bit since rejoining the club following his move from Leicester. to me, I think he'll be there longer than the 3 years. And I know a lot of people have been reading the comments and what Brendan Rodgers said, and maybe taking the clip in isolation. But I've listened to it a couple of times now, and I believe that he will be there longer than the 3 years. I don't think he's in any rush. He said he's in no rush to go anywhere, and why would he? Because he's got something really good here, and not just that, but the club is actually building in his image and the way that he wants the club to be run. He's got that middleman in Paul Tisdale now, who was absent at the AGM. I think if the one thing I would have wanted to hear from him, hear about his role in more detail. That'd be the one thing that I would ask for. But apart from that, the AGM is fine. But that Paul Tisdale's there. He clearly works well with Brendan Rodgers. They had that initial period during the summer to see if things would work. Clearly has. They've got everything that they wanted in the transfer window, apart from maybe a winger that might get remedied in the January transfer window. Watch this space, but yeah, he's got somebody that he can clearly work with, somebody that's got experience. He's getting the players in that he wants. He's got full autonomy with how he wants the team how the team plays. He's got coaching staff. He brought in, I think was it Jack Lyons that came back to the club following his spell at Leicester. So even bringing in analysts that are of his liking and to his taste, that's important as well. So he's got a really good thing at the moment with Celtic. I think he'll be here longer than the 3 years, unless an incredible job comes along. But even then, I don't think he would be moving to another Leicester or a West Ham, one of these teams. I think it would need to be the top echelons of English football or Spanish football for him to leave Celtic at this moment in time. I think he's pretty safe where he is, and I think he realises just how much he loves what he's got here at the moment, so much so that he was saying that he missed it when he left, and he didn't know what he had until it was gone. These are all great sound bites, but I genuinely believe him when he says that, and I know that people might find it difficult to trust him given the way that things transpired last time. But from what I heard today, was a guy that was being a manager and an individual that was being genuine and honest about how he was feeling, but being in charge of the football club, and that's all you want to hear at the end of the day, because he sounds extremely settled. And that's the best thing for the football club at this moment in time.
There's some wonderful footage years ago of Jock Stein talking about when he was asked to come back, and he said he would only come back if he had total control over the football side of the operations. And he's very frank about it. And he says, I told him I wouldn't come back unless I had total control, but I was assured I was given total control. And it kind of goes on, and he says that he's egotistical to think that whilst he has total control, that they'll be reasonably successful. I think that's the point that Brendan Rodgers has reached with Celtic. He now has total control because he's got everything in that he wanted. He's got rid of things that he didn't want. And I think they're seeing Brendan Rodgers for what he is, that elite level manager that Celtic are lucky to have at this football club. And he has manoeuvred himself into this position now and he's not asking anything out with reason, which he maybe did the first time, but there is money there to be spent. So you ask for $8.5 million to get Ida, you get it. You ask for 11 million to get Engels, you get it. That kind of thing. You ask for Paul Tisdale, you ask for Jack Lyons to come back. These kind of things, because he is egotistical enough to think, if you provide me this, then my job is to improve players and develop players and be a football manager. But if you provide me with all the tools that I need at my disposal, I can do that to the best of my ability. And the best of my ability is that it's better than quite a lot of people that are out there. And in doing that, Celtic will be successful. We're all successful. You'll reap the rewards of that off the park as well, like you are right now. And Celtic will go where we want them to go, i.e. they'll dominate domestically and they'll be a noise in Europe, which is taking him a year and a bit, but that's what's the building blocks that he's put into place. This is the team that you say he's building in his own image. That's what he wants for Celtic. And I think there are very few places in world football you would get that autonomy, that freedom, and that personal happiness.
Yeah, I think it's a lot of factors rolled into one, to be honest. And I don't even think this would be a problem if, like Nicholson has kind of alluded to with the financials, if Celtic were in the Premier League, Brendan Rodgers, don't even think he would have left the first time. What reason would there have been to leave? Because Celtic, if they were in the Premier League, and I make this point, and you've got to take into account finances and restructuring of Celtic Park. Celtic could challenge down south. They are they're a cash-rich club in a small league at the moment. Could you imagine if you put them into the big leagues against the other big teams like Liverpool, Chelsea, Man United, Man City, Arsenal, etc.? It's I'm not going to say it's a personal dream of mine, but something I would like to see Celtic do in the medium to long term of their future in terms of getting that.
But you look at you look at the way the Champions League's going, Ryan, and if Celtic are a cash-rich club and they can use that to their advantage by continually qualifying for the Champions League and getting access to that money and making themselves a force at that level, then at some point you will meet myself and Hamish will talk about this morning. At some point, a third of your season games will be at that top level, right? Between it's 8 games just now. It's going to go.
That's a bigger selling point than before, if that's the case.
10 games and 12 games in the future, isn't it? So players are going to come, especially if you can prove that you're successful in that arena. I think a big stumbling block for Celtic was to attract players because the results were particularly ropey. Now Brendan's there's a kind of a rewriting of Celtic in the Champions League now. It was a recalibration. It was a new tournament, so we wanted a new Celtic, and that's what Brendan Rodgers was saying. A new Celtic in this new Champions League format. Show that you can be, ferociously competitive. Show that you're an attractive proposition for players, which helps that cycle of Celtic getting better and better results on that stage, which means by the time the Champions League phase evolves, and it will evolve into 10 games and 12 games, you're saying to potential signings, a third of your season's playing at that level, playing against the top teams, playing on a platform on a stage where you want to take your career. Nicholas Kuhn's already done it and said it. I want to play in the Champions League. I want to score in the Champions League. I want to play for Germany. He's achieved 2 of those 3, and the third one's in the post, isn't it? Because the manager's eyes are on him. So I think all of these things are positive, and it's all come about because of the last 2 managers. I won't forget Postecoglou's input in building the new Celtic, but Brendan Rodgers has taken it and ran with it as well, and is now shaping Celtic into that team that you and I want to see as being domestically dominant and ferociously competitive at the Champions League level.
Well, that's 3 years in a row now that Celtic have been in, the proper stage of the Champions League, not just qualifiers, but the actual group stage and in the league phase this season, of course. But having that exposure every year will help players like Hatate, players like Cameron Carter-Vickers, players that have been there for 2-3 years now. They now understand what it takes, and they can then put that knowledge, along with Callum McGregor, who's been there previously, Arne Engels, that's played in the Bundesliga, but it's a different level altogether, playing against likes of Leipzig, Bratislava, Borussia Dortmund every sort of 2-3 weeks now. Having that exposure is only going to help players in the long run, and by passing that on to the new players, then they've got experience, so that they then become the experienced players, and they can pass that on to the new players. It's a revolving door. It's like a sort of domino effect, but it works. It's a continuous cycle, and that's good for the club because it means that the operation is working. Now, just touching on those comments that Lawwell talked about, a rainy day, I don't necessarily even read that as a fact of Celtic not winning the league, because I expect Celtic to win the league every season. But it's just, I think that's more down to the fact that Celtic will be up against qualifiers from next season onwards, just due to the coefficient, which, Celtic in part have been to blame. I won't say that Celtic are the only reason why the coefficient is so bad, because they've actually been in the Champions League. There's been other bad results from every team from Scotland that have accumulated into this position that Celtic and other teams in Europe find themselves in. But that rainy day could be, you have a tricky tie against an upstart that are coming through into the Champions League. Celtic have just got to put themselves in a great position that can't happen, that, they'll be the overwhelming favourites going into a qualifier, and that they're used to winning games both home and away from home in European competition. I believe they'll only have 1 qualifier if they win the league this season, which, is manageable, but at the same time, it's still it's still a coin toss, home and away, whether or not you get into depends who you get. But the thing is that Celtic will more than likely be seeded going through the Champions route. So, I mean, it won't be an easy tie, but, you know, we're still to win the league this season, of course. We're already talking about next season. But the club are clearly in a good place, European-wise. They'll get money coming in from these wins and draws in the Champions League. Hopefully they get through to at least the playoff, if not maybe one of the top 8 teams. But if not, they'll get through the playoff, and that's another 2 games added, and they'll fancy their chances against whoever they come up against. But yeah, it's a really positive place to be at the moment with regard to Celtic in Europe, Celtic domestically. Why would Brendan Rodgers want to leave at this moment in time? It feels as if things are only getting started.
Yeah. Thank you to Bethany Webb, new YouTube member. Appreciate that. It's very kind. You can get access. Ryan will explain what happens along the bottom there. Ryan, take it away, sir.
Put me on the spot there. Yeah, you can support our work by joining our YouTube members channel for just £2.99 a month. You'll receive early video access, priority comments, and exclusive members chat function. Click that join button. It's right next to the subscribe button. And also, if you want to subscribe to us and help us completely free of charge, of course, you'll get notified as when we go live with videos like this, morning briefings, pre and post match videos, which will be coming tomorrow live from Tynecastle. If you want to subscribe, completely free, press that button, and let's get us to 12,500 subscribers very, very soon. Fingers crossed we can get to that number. Thank you very much, guys. We really do appreciate it.
Yeah, and Natalie McMillan, $4.99. Big Celtic fan. She loves watching the Celtic way. Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you very much, Natalie. We really do appreciate it.
It's very, very kind. Nearly 250 people watching us live on a Friday night, guys. It's the start of the weekend, so we thank you very much for tuning in. Ryan, it has been a busy day for you and I. You can check out Ryan's live blog from the Celtic AGM today. You can also check out the respective Q&As from Brendan Rodgers and Alistair Johnston. They're on the site right now. There's a couple of articles going up from myself, one at 8 o'clock, one at 10:30 on the AGM and on Brendan Rodgers' comments today. So you can have a look at them. Bethany coming back in, she's subscribed because she thinks this is the best platform and you guys make it all the better. Bethany, thank you very much. Flattery gets you everywhere, isn't that right, Ryan? So appreciate that. That's very, very kind of you to say. And yeah, so there's all sorts on there, guys, to have a look at on the website. We appreciate you tuning into the YouTube videos as well. As Ryan said, we're nearly at 12,500 subscribers, isn't it? So that's our next target, and then we'll target 13 and so on and so forth. But yeah, lots of we believe it's good value and top content. So you have a look at that in your leisure. But appreciate you coming on. What's that? 33 minutes, Ryan. Some 250 people joining us. I'm always amazed when they come on in their droves because it's we love doing it because it's part of our remit and it's we don't care how long the day is and how long it takes to we don't stop till the work's done. That's our mantra, isn't it? And we enjoy engaging with fellow Celtic supporters and getting their thoughts as well. So Alistair Jack, he wants us to sneak him in tomorrow, right? I think there's only 600 tickets, isn't there? Something like that. Tynecastle, Ryan, some 650, something like that. Than that.
Yeah, something around that ballpark. Yeah,
stadium, yeah, something around that. Yeah, but
it's definitely reduced allocation, and it was actually quite enlightening to hear that St Johnstone are actually thinking about rejigging their allocation issues, or not allocation issues, if they don't get more punters in, more home punters in, then they'll open the doors for more Celtic and Rangers fans, which makes sense to me. I know people have different opinions. I think maybe a couple of biased opinions, but I think the most important thing for these clubs is getting people in seats, regardless of who they support. Spectators equals money. Money equals the funding of clubs and the betterment of clubs. So hopefully that message is reciprocated from many teams in and around Scotland.
I think in the light of that, you only need to look at what's happening to Dumbarton, who are a club with a fine Scottish football history at this minute in time. So try that again. I always say that respective clubs have the right to determine what happens with away allocations and how many Celtic and Rangers supporters get in. That's purely up to them. I would never meddle in those affairs, but I just don't understand empty seats when they could be sold. That's my bugbear on this. And if clubs feel that they can fill their stadiums whenever Celtic and Rangers come and give them a small allocation, then so be it. But as I say, I look at a club like Dumbarton, and it's sad to see that happening in this day and age. Clubs like Inverness, Calais as well, Inverness, Caledonian Thistle. There never have been Inverness, Calais, I once get told. Stuff like that. I don't like to see that, Ryan. So, as I say, it's clubs' prerogative to deal with away allocations the way they see fit. But empty seats is something that's a big bugbear of mine when you're watching football. But listen, I say it's purely up to other clubs to decide their policy on that. I would never try and dictate that. But I just think you want to show Scottish football in the most positive light as you possibly can. And I think full stadia is the way to do that. And if Celtic and Rangers are coming to town, then cash in. Why not? I know you're giving up some kind of advantage, I guess. But listen, that's fair enough. As I say, they can judge it the way they see fit. But yeah, for the 576 Alison, Jack tells us that are in Celtic tomorrow, supporting Celtic in the stand, and that will be to our right from the press box, Ryan, a small contingent. You and I are fortunate to be in the privileged position to do what we do for a living, and we'll be there tomorrow night. So, and we never lose sight of that fact. It's a privilege and an honour to do this and to come on these videos and chat, regardless of what time it is. And it'll be a late one tomorrow night, Ryan. It'll be near the midnight hour probably by the time we're on. But we'll be on pre-match and post-match. We'll be here and giving your thoughts on what will be, or we hope to be, a cracking football match tomorrow night, Ryan. A great spectacle.
Yeah, Tynecastle under the floodlights. Adverse weather conditions you'd probably expect as well, given the time of year. You couldn't you wouldn't want it any other way, really. Saturday night under the lights. I don't need to sell this. It already sells itself. It's Celtic away from home. It's a stadium that me personally, I've got a losing record in. It's the only away stadium in which I do have in terms of covering Celtic. That's the only stadium, because every other one I've only seen Celtic win or maybe draw, and Pittodrie being the other one. So yeah, it's all about Celtic to make amends tomorrow. Hopefully it's better than last time. Are you worried that I've jinxed it or something? I don't believe in jinxes. You make your own luck.
I was going to go an old Radio Scotland TV commentator, radio commentator, whose catchphrase was there. David Francis' name was. That's the kind of things he used to say. So yes, hopefully we're not having an oh dear conversation tomorrow, Ryan. But yeah, Hazel, Finn, Tony, don't let him in. There you go, Ryan. But yes, you did see Celtic lose, and I've seen Celtic lose there a few times as well, but I've seen a lot of victories along the years too, so here's hoping. But now, every confidence in this team, Ryan, tomorrow. Our predicted lineups will be on from tomorrow morning as well. Keep your eye out for them, but we'll be pre and post match to give you your thoughts on the actual lineup when the teams are announced. That'll be some point tomorrow evening, but can't wait for that. It'll be one more sleep, as they say, Ryan. Yeah.
Yep, absolutely. One more sleep to go until Tynecastle away. You cannot beat it.
Indeed. Right, guys, that's been 40 minutes. We're going to call it a day because it has been a long one so far. The AGM is up there for you to have a look at. The Q&As are up there as well. Have a look at them. A couple of pieces from myself going up at 8 o'clock and 10:30 tonight if you want to have a look at them, or you're up and around for them. Nice one. Thanks for a great show, says James McMullen. Thanks very much. Very kind. Thanks, guys, says Francis, regular contributor there. So appreciate it. Thank you so much. have a wonderful weekend until tomorrow. We'll be back to do it all again, Ryan. Road trip to Edinburgh along the M8. Bring it on.
Absolutely. Yeah, cannot wait. Counting down the seconds. Thank you to everybody that's joined us on tonight's show. Really do appreciate it after a really busy day it's been, but we appreciate each and every one of you, and we hope that you can join us tomorrow for the pre and post match videos live on the Celtic Way YouTube page, X page, and Facebook page. We'll need to see if we can get it on Blue Sky as well at some point.
No, bit of a misnomer, that Blue Sky for the Celtic Way. Maybe need to have a look at that, Ryan. But hey, we'll see what happens. You're the technological whiz kid. I'll leave that up to you. But hey, there you go. Guys, have a good one. We'll be back tomorrow. Same time. Well, not same time. Same back channel, certainly. Don't know about the same time, but certainly the same back channel. Take care. Have a good one.
Cheers, guys.